Hello and welcome. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX. You are watching the NewsX and Business World panels on the Indian economy. We are looking now, building up to the budget 2021, looking at, of course, the COVID impact on the economy, but more importantly now, how to rebuild and how to regrow the India story back to what it was in the pre-COVID era. Joining us as always a power-packed panel today. Ishpreet Singh Gandhi, founder and managing partner, Stride Vendors, is joining us live. Tej Kapoor, co-executive president, Fosun RZ Capital, is also with us live. Mr. Rohit Bhayana, co-founder and managing partner, Lumis Partners, is joining us as well. Tarun Chaurasia, founder and managing director, PE Partners, joins the panel as well, as does Dr. Anurag Batra, chairman and editor-in-chief, Business World and Exchange for Media Group. Welcome all of you and thank you so much for being with us today. Ishpreet Gandhi, let me begin with you first. What are your key expectations, Ishpreet, from the Union Budget of 2021, which of course will be presented by the Finance Minister in about 3 weeks' time? And how are you viewing this upcoming year ahead? What are your key expectations from it, and what are you most looking forward to this year?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to the show. So first of all, before going into what are the expectations, what we foresee at Stride, it's important to tell what we do as a fund. So we are structured as a non-dilutive.
One second, I'm just gonna request the others to mute themselves because I think there is some echo coming. Either someone has their TV on or someone has their mobile on, which also has the feed. So I request you to just switch that off. But yeah, Ishpreet, please go ahead, make your point.
Sure. At Stride, we are an alternate investment fund with SEBI. And what we do is we provide non-dilutive capital in the form of debt to growth stage companies in India. These are the companies who are typically established, have certain set of revenues, and with the past year, which has gone by in 2020, a lot of sectors depend on this initiative or these companies in various forms. So as a fund right now, we have 14 live transactions, and if we just break down upon the economy or the people who are dependent on these kind of companies, we are talking about close to a 10 million number in terms of the employment generated by these companies in some form or the other. So since basically 2020, one of your aspects of the question was that what do we see going forward in this year and how budget can play a role. One of the things which we do while providing debt, since we partner with banks and do a lot of credit structures, we have realized that the next pickup of the economy will happen through digital adoption. And digital adoption is something which we have gone into it over a period of last 1 year in some sense, precisely in the last 10 months. And it's interlinked across sectors. If I can give you an example, the moment we consume, the way we consume and how we consume has changed over a period of last 8-10 months. At the consumption end, there have been a lot of new disruptive players on D2C brands which have come in. On the back end of that is the logistics, which ensures that you get what you want at your home with these brands. And then on the back end, there's point of sales, which is a fintech sector. And then it gives a lot of manufacturing to the new age SME companies. So the adoption which we have done in the past 8-10 months has actually touched lives of a lot of people as well as changing habits of various sectors. It's very important that we understand that 21 will have certain bit of these sectors into an adopting mode, and some of these sectors which have been majorly where we as consumer have been more adaptive for a while will go away. So once we decipher which are the adoptive sectors, I think those sectors gaining focus over next year or so, it will be very critical, and 21 will be all about those sectors. In terms of budget, since we work as an alternate investment fund and we seek private investments as a part of growth to these kind of companies in various structures, anything which helps new kind of investors coming and building platforms around funding these companies who henceforth are creating opportunities for employment are what we seek as investors in this sector.
Okay, and what about now the budget 2021, Ishpreet? Any key expectations that you have from the budget 2021, and any trend that you particularly are looking forward to later in the year for your fund and for your setup?
So we've seen a great adaptation as well as adoption of debt, which has been quite kind of very underpenetrated in the ecosystem. So we see a lot of companies who've started realizing that there are ways to structure a lot of financing opportunities on both sides of the business. So once we speak about the companies which we fund has suppliers, has customers. If you can create an ecosystem in which you start funding both the spectrum of suppliers and customers who are dependent on them, so to the likes of delivery boy, to the likes of players, e-commerce, the logistics delivery boy who deliver goods at our places. So anything, as I said, specifically anything which supports the sector largely on the budget, which is in the form of so let's presume an investor investing into an alternate investment fund has a certain TDS implications. They have certain long-term capital gains to pay. If that attracts, that investor focus gets attracted to these sectors, to encourage more investments by private funds in various forms is what specifically in the budget we are looking at. And we've, as an industry body, we've tried already parking some bit of it, and we're trying to take it forward, and that's what we see.
Okay, Dr. Batra, yes.
Let me bring in Rohit Dana into the conversation. Rohit, again, you've been in this game for last 11 years. And tell us what has changed between 20 and 21 when you approach the new year with new investments in new sectors.
So I think, Anurag, first and foremost, a large part of 2020 obviously has gone to just being reactive on COVID. And a large part of industry has reacted very well, I would say. Assuming that very quickly we can see some of lives get back to business as usual with the vaccine distribution, which will be one side of things. I think the other side of it is very focused, is about how do we take inefficiencies out of the economy. I think, on a very simple basis, the way I look at India is, for the longest ever, we struggled with the production side or the demand or the supply generation side. India for a very long struggled with that, whether it was industrial relation issues, unions, this, that, scale, everything. We finally kind of got it sorted out. Then for a very long time, we struggled with consumption side issues, whether it was to do with taxation, it was to do with demand generation on the back of buoyancy in the economy, people having dispensable income, private sector jobs, all of that coming in. I think finally, very interestingly, we have both the things sorted. We have demand side, supply side, both sorted. What is the problem in the country still is the leakage that happens from demand getting consumed, or demand getting fulfilled. If the leakages in the economy can be plugged now, which I think, I know people have extreme views, but I think GST was a great thing. A great thing that happened towards some of blurring of those boundaries, taking out those leakages, taking out some of those inefficiencies. I think whatever needs to be done to India now in 2021, which can focus on getting the country manage demand and supply efficiencies in a better way, will go a very long way. To me, any sector and every sector will get touched. For instance, taking some examples, we built some phenomenal industry in this country in the IT sector. Why do we build it? We built SEZs, software export zones, right? SEPZs and all of that stuff. We buoyed a complete generation of growth in India on the back of IT exports. We have put so many other export parks or food parks and all kind of special processing zones, but we really haven't seen any one of them get critical mass the way IT saw get critical mass. Why? And is there an opportunity now to do it when the world wants to diversify beyond China? Is there a way to do it now that India itself has a local market and hence critical mass exists within the country? Now is there a way to do it given that state borders have gone away and we have GST? So सब कुछ कर दिया है, सब कुछ fix हो गया है. We just need to now start putting the throughput and seeing it come together effectively. That's, to my mind, that's the biggest thing.
Okay, Rohit, we'll come to your philosophy and possibly your scaling up. But at this point, let me go to Tarun Chaurasia. Tarun, you're an investment banker. You work with people like Ishpreet, Rohit, and Tej to be able to help entrepreneurs get funding. Fintech is a sector that's growing very fast. Education is growing fast. Real estate is growing fast. Give us a sense of, have the deal sizes become larger or smaller? What is the sweet spot? What is the change in the attitude of entrepreneurs and investors that you are noticing?
I think if you look at the the total number of deals and the amount which has been invested so far in the period of January to November in India, I think the total amount of investment is probably about $44.9 billion, which has come down to about $41.4 billion. So broadly, in terms of the contraction with respect to the investment activity, it's not much, it's just 8%. But this includes a big number, which is a Reliance deal, both for Reliance Retail as well as for the Geo platform, which accounts for $17.3 billion. So effectively, if you look at, there is a contraction in the deal activity, which is close to 46% during the period January to November, if you exclude the Reliance deal. Now, coming back to your question in terms of the kind of sectors that we have been seeing, I guess in terms of the number of sectors, you see education, healthcare, technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, B2B, and any other sector you talk about, technology has to be in the forefront. I guess in my interaction with so far in the investor community, what I've realized that nobody is ready to touch the traditional businesses. Everybody is looking for a differentiator. Everybody is looking for a disruption. Everybody is looking for a new idea. You name a particular sector, you name a particular business, if there is no technology involved, people are not ready to look at those particular sectors. So this trend is expected to continue in 2021 as well in the startup community. Now, one of the things that I have noticed over a period of time, I would say between the last 2 years versus the previous years, that the deal-making dynamics have completely changed. Now, earlier we used to have a single investor doing the deal, whether it's a $1 million deal or a $5 million deal or a $50 million deal. But if you look at the data of last 1 to 2 years, you will see almost every single deal, you have more than one investor who's putting the money. Basically, they are diversifying their risk and everybody is following the platform structure. So there is a...
You are saying co-investment as a philosophy will grow. That's what you're saying. We'll come back to you, Tarun. Let me bring in Tej Kapoor. Tej, you are both a prolific angel investor yourself, plus your fund has made investments in the past. Tell us, exits are equally important as investing. Will we see you personally and your fund making exits this year? And I'd like to ask that to Rohit also. I know Rohit has a portfolio of companies. Some of them are doing very well. I know of one portfolio company that is making waves in the UK in terms of student housing. So tell us, Tej, will 2021 be the year of exits for you?
Sir, thank you so much for this opportunity and good to be here. I think Rohit and all of us would say that as VC investor, we always have a marriage with a divorce plan. So it is very, very important that we get exits. It is actually very necessary that we get exits at the right time. And I do believe that this year will be the year of exits. I'll tell you why, because now we have more than 35 unicorns in this country, which has happened for the first time. And all these unicorns are going to acquire and consolidate some of the assets. As a matter of fact, last year, if you notice, White Hat Junior got acquired by Byju's, which was, acquisition which happened only in 18 months. Also, there's a big heavyweight, Reliance, that has raised, as per my friend, $22 billion. They have to put that in play. And that is also going to further give liquidity to the VCs like us. And then we have, Google and Facebook that is coming in with loads of bags of money. Google, as you know, has said that they would invest $10 billion in the market. And I see some of the companies even going for IPO. So, for example, one of our portfolio company, Delivery, is going to go into the IPO mode, given the numbers that they have now. So you will see that this is going to further accelerate the investor payouts. We have very good, startup ecosystem has evolved quite a bit. We have lots of companies now which can actually go for exit, and we have mature companies. On top of it, sir, I believe the momentum which is there in terms of new investments has also not reduced, even though there has been a constraint on China investments. But still, the money has come into India. And I don't see there is any other economy which has revived like Indian economy. So I don't see it slowing down at all. I see, in the early stage, deal flow is very, very active. The COVID impacted a little bit, but now it's back on. I can, Ishpreet can also tell you, Stride, we are getting lots of new proposals for equity investment. I mean, in the fields of, fintech, particularly like you pointed out, is also, which saw a lot of stress, is kind of reviving back. So good to see that. And I don't think this year is going to be any slower. So we are excited both on exits and in terms of new investments.
We take your word for it. And just before we take a break, Rohit, I want to ask you, the Atmanirbhar concept that the Prime Minister gave, for some of your portfolio companies, it was not just a concept. You actually went beyond India and made a mark. Give us a sense of, do you see more Indian companies going abroad and making a mark?
Absolutely, Anurag. I definitely do see that. I think Atmanirbhar becomes even more Atmanirbhar when every time an Indian company does that, because eventually when you take a company out of its home zone, it has to compete with global majors. And when it does that, it strengthens the core framework on which it is built. And every time it strengthens it, it is warding off global competition coming into India and just taking out that sector completely. Right? So the fact that Flipkart was strong enough could give a strong run to Amazon. The fact that we had Ola here, Uber could have a strong run. I think we're going to see that across the board. Every time an Indian and now we're going to see it the other way around. Indian companies going out are going to really drive a very significant part of 2021. I think it's already started, and we are just one of the many. But across the board, I hear everyone say, at the very least, people are expanding into Middle East and Southeast Asia. That's like, it now almost feels it's one region. It doesn't even feel it's incohesive. So all the way from Middle East to Southeast Asia, with India practically situated very comfortably in the middle, is a huge thing. Now you're seeing companies getting very comfortably into Africa in a big way. I was talking about food. I've started hearing such amazing things about food, where India is riding right in between Africa and Southeast Asia. So food startups, and that's just going to be the way we are going to see things.
Some larger questions now on the debate. Let's go straight across to Dr. Batra for more. Dr. Batra, over to you.
Thank you so much, Uday. Uday, let me start by asking each of the panelists, what are their top lockdown lessons? What have they learned in 2020 as entrepreneurs, as people in the ecosystem of investing and helping other entrepreneurs? What are their new thought processes that they've added on? Let me start with Ishpreet. Ishpreet, you started a fund in 2019, but you were able to raise this in 2020 and made investments in the end of 2020. Give us a sense of what were the lessons you learned while you did so.
Yeah, thanks, Anurag. You rightly said we launched our fund in practically end of 19. And we were a couple of investments when we saw COVID facing us, and it was a difficult time for any first-time fund manager in India. I think the important aspect which a couple of colleagues mentioned is seriously the digital drive which the country will see and the opportunity which India holds. I think the entire intent of, so you rightly said, we raised most of our fund through Zoom, which is the platform in which on which we are speaking right now, and we have done most of our investments through Zoom, which is unlike lenders, right? So we have created a portfolio of 14 companies and some of the largest one in this space, and just simply, I think it's the intent of the entire ecosystem to drive India in a different manner. I think we were mentioning about the corporates' visibility towards this sector. A lot of corporates have invested into us, and a lot of family offices have started thinking, strategizing anything which is digital and diversifying their current base. Because traditional businesses has seen a disruption, there's no denial. To what extent this disruption has happened is what we realize in the next 2-3 years, is that adoption thing which we have spoken about. I think a lot of family offices believe with the new generation coming into the families that they have to ensure that they work arms and gloves closely, cohesively with all the young companies or tech-oriented companies to attain a scale. So giving examples, the traditional businesses which might be into real estate have come out of real estate and saying, what are the new businesses which we can build for our younger generation? The businesses who've been into education on traditional schools say how we adopt with the education technology. The businesses who've been onto the traditional logistics side say how we build tech into our businesses. All of these are disruption in various forms. If you see US, right, most of the market capitalization which has happened recently is a source of tech companies. And that drive is slowly and gradually coming in with China's obstacle coming in place. People are looking up to it. In US, there is a concept of SPACs which has come in, which is to give liquidation of ensuring that young companies can get listed without the regulatory framework which they observe in. I think somebody asked about what kind of regulations you want to see. If you want to really work with some of the growth stage companies, give them the revenue to free themselves and express, unlock as much money as possible. I think this is the learning. You asked about the learning. Learning is adoption. Everybody wants to do. India, young age India wants to do. It's working very closely with all the large corporates, young companies, giving them platforms, developing feed to do it.
Okay. So rightly said that digital is the way forward for all sectors. And 2020, a lot of people turned 2020 into an advantage and through the use of technology moved their business forward. Tej, we often meet and talk about the new sectors that are coming up. But for a moment, I want to talk to you about Tej Kapoor's philosophical learnings in 2020. What were your top lockdown lessons in 2020?
Thanks, Anurag. I think 2020 came to us like a shockwave. And one thing for me was the sheer resilience of our entrepreneurs is mind-boggling. We had businesses in travel segment. We have businesses we funded in fintech segment. Literally the business, Anurag, you can imagine, also your business, advertising, all came to almost zero. The way the entrepreneurs, way they worked around it, the teamwork, the spirit of India, the everything that come together was for me, I was humbled that, I have not done anything in life. Looking at these entrepreneurs, how they took pay cut, how they, manage their teams. Like Ishpreet was saying, even on the Zoom, there was, happy hours happening. People were really, really trying to, keep the spirits high while this very sad event was taken us by a surprise. I think second thing is, Anurag, I would say efficiency. The business efficiency, the way it improved was just phenomenal. How much more you can do with less people. We came to realize in time of COVID. And for me personally, it was, when you stretch your arm and how far can you stretch your arm? It was the moment of that, like, we are so elastic. Our nature is such that we can achieve anything. So that was second personal learning. Third was, I obviously digital, as this was like, like how demonetization was a moment for fintech. I think the COVID was the moment for digital economy. Even my mother, who you have met, Anurag, 67 years of age, was ordering through, Swiggy and Zomato, and that was a very phenomenal change. And last thing I would say is that there is no challenging times. Reliance raised $22 billion during lockdown. Obviously it's Mr. Mukesh Bhai, but, it's not possible. So no challenge is big enough. And, the unnecessary travel that we used to do is totally gone. I was eating healthy. I was doing a lot more yoga exercises, etc. So I think it made me even better in terms of health. So those were my personal takes, Anurag.
If I can just add to what Tej said, I'm sorry. But I think one aspect which, Anurag, we caught up candidly once, and I think it's totally resonant to what you've built in your business, is true leaders have come out. I think that's another thing which has happened. True leaders have got created in this time, who've shown a mettle of standing. And then, Rohit, we can go to you. But I thought I'll just add on that thought of ensuring that people who have been resilient have got the results.
We can go to you, Rohit. I think Dr. Batra may have frozen there. You can come in, Rohit, on your lockdown lessons of 2020.
Yeah. I think actually everything that Tej said, I would echo with everything. I think one thing which stood with me most was during this time, just given how challenging the circumstances were, I've seen two kinds of people emerge. People who are very status quo people, who were just, and I'm saying this from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I'm talking about people who were trying to make business decisions, who would not move, not budge, and they just wanted to stay status quo because everything was shifting, the whole ground was changing. And if they moved at that time, their belief system was things would come collapsing down. And then we saw people whom we all know who really who really took that decisive plunge, who said, no, if things are changing, if the sands are shifting, I want to drive some of that shift, and I want to change everything that I had, and I could never do it in the usual times, but now I would rather just do it. And we've seen those businesses catapult so many times forward. So to me, the biggest thing was, in this period of time, how do you really adapt your business for more people of that kind? And the most amazing thing is such people are at every level. They're not just senior leaders, they're not just CEOs and CXOs, they're sitting at every level. So never before have I seen attitude stand out like it has during COVID. And that gutsy attitude is really, if that DNA can be spotted and companies can just multiply, clone that at every level, that DNA is far bigger a thing than talent, than opportunity, than the sector you're playing in, than everything else. So the sheer power of that human capital has been phenomenal during COVID.
Okay, Tej Kapoor.
Yeah, I just answered the same question. Do you have anything else? Should I add?
Tarun, you.
Yeah. Maybe I can add a little bit.
Please, and then we'll move to, of course, our last segment. Yeah, go ahead, Tarun.
So I've been interacting with a lot of entrepreneurs who've been trying to raise capital from the market, and as of today, there are thousands and thousands of promoters and startups who've been in the market, floating in the market, trying to raise capital. I guess there is a very, very tough competition currently in the market among the startup community who has been trying to raise capital. At the same time, investors have become very, very choosy, and they've been focusing on quality deals, quality sectors, A-class entrepreneurs, and exceptional business models. I guess my take is that from a startup and from an entrepreneur perspective, that it's important to first build your business. People are focusing more and more raising capital, raising equity, rather than building your own business. You got to really come out with some level of traction. You got to prove yourself. You got to prove your idea. I guess time has changed when people and investors used to put in money just on the basis of the idea. Irrespective of what idea you have, you got to really execute it, implement it, show some level of attraction, put your own money, and then reach out to an investor, because investors are looking for quality deals. That's learning number one. Learning number two, what I've seen that, as I mentioned earlier as well, that traditional businesses is something which nobody is interested. You got to really come out with a different set of idea. You got to be really using technology so that you can grow exponentially, and that's exactly what investors are looking at. Third and more important thing is what I've seen, that there is a tremendous and a dire need to educate the startup community with respect to what is the right stage of business for you to raise capital, and how much capital you should raise. I've seen, and it's a pain to me personally when I interact with these startups, that you have an idea, you build up your pitch deck, and you're roaming all over the social media trying to reach out to people and asking for money. At the end of the day, what you get a complete, a huge level of disappointment, and ultimately you feel that my idea is bad. So you really got to bring your own capital, borrow from your family, from your relatives, got your money, build your business, and then reach out to an investor. So build your business first before you're looking out for an external money.
Okay. And effectively, what Tarun means is stop giving as much importance to investors.
Not really.
Okay. What about now milestones? Now looking ahead, of course, at 2021, this new year, what are some milestones that all of you have set for your ventures and for yourselves? Rohit, Bhayana, let's begin with you.
So I think the one thing which COVID has taught us all is you do need a plan C. Forget plan A and plan B, you do need a plan C. And I think across the board, this is the simplest thing I can tell you, is across the board, every company, we are activating plan C on a quarterly basis, across the board, which means we will review your plan Cs if demand shrinks, we'll review your plan C if capital evaporates, we'll review your plan C if markets go tanking down, we'll review your plan C if emotions or buying patterns change, all of that. So effectively always have a plan C, a living plan C.
Okay, Tarun?
Yeah, I think, my take is more, specific to sectors. If I talk about the expectation from the budget and 2021 is different for each sector. Everybody is looking for economy to revive quickly. But,
No, or for your venture, if you've drawn up any milestones,
yes,
or
yes,
for
yes,
yourself,
of course, of course. I'm looking up to close at least 2 to 3 deals, and primarily and largely in the technology-driven businesses. And I guess the largest chunk will go to education, healthcare, technology-driven businesses, artificial intelligence, B2B, and logistic, and so on and so forth. I don't see that too many deals are happening in the real estate sector. That is one of the sectors which will remain muted in 2021 if not picked up really well.
Okay. Tej Kapoor?
Yes, I think one thing we are telling our investing companies is, to become investor-free Atmanirbhar, which means that, think about, not only, 6 months, but a year where you might have slow funding, less money coming in. So prepare yourself for that. That's very important. And that's why you have to be, far more efficient the way you are running your businesses. And manage your marketing expense. And also the second thing, which is that be ready for another shock. You never know. I think Rohit pointed that out. We are not out of COVID. None of us are. The vaccination is going to take its own time. So don't be thinking that this is over. And just plan for that. Plan C, what Rohit mentioned. So we are also cautioning all our companies to keep that in mind, that we are not out of it yet. So you need to be still very, very resilient in terms of how you lay out your business plan. And this year is all about growth with caution. Definitely, we want our companies to grow, but not at the cost of higher expenses or blowing your money away. So you have to be very, very cautious. We are still in it. We are very aware of it, and we need to be careful because we got to generate good returns for our LPs, and they wouldn't be happy if a lot of companies fail.
All right, Ishpreet?
Yes, actually, I echo with what Tej and Rohit also said, that you need to have all kinds of scenarios in mind while planning this year. It's not as certain or uncertain what it seems like. There are a lot of things which are coming our way, opportunities, challenges. But I think being self-reliant or investor free is where we also work at Stride. I think how we've ended our year is making companies aware that there is life beyond equity money, and there are ways to structure debt solutions with the financial institutes. Our this year goal would definitely be as one of the preferred lenders and educators in the ecosystem to structure products as per the requirements of the business.
Okay. And also, in terms of now the government, what are your expectations from the government and the RBI? Because last year, of course, we did see several tranches of the financial stimulus package, which was announced. Also, there was, certain key announcements by the RBI, which did provide relief to certain sectors and consumers. It's a new year now. There's the budget, of course, coming up, but perhaps there will be other opportunities for the RBI and the government to also announce some more measures. More reforms that perhaps are needed at this point. And, as they say, the best opportunity sometimes is in adversity. And the government did seize the day with certain sectors reforms last year. So what are certain, expectations that you perhaps still have from the government and the RBI, which you'd like to put out through our channel? Ishpreet, let me begin with you.
Sure. Actually, just to be very clear, as a fund, we are not governed by RBI.
Yeah.
Right? We are more with SEBI. But we work with banks and financial institutes who are governed by them. And I think what we require is a constant encouragement by the Reserve Bank and the Central Bank to support the banks to do the structures which are more amicable to support the delta growth for the new economy, which will be in the form of relaxing a bit of norms which you've set for the banks to fund this sector. There's been a circular in August which specifically said funding growth stage companies which will create a digital economy as a part of priority sector lending. And we work very closely on behalf of the ecosystem to have that kind of things in place. And we believe it's a time to capitalize. And if banks can go beyond, or Reserve Bank of India, Central Bank can give avenues or swaps with the ones which you mentioned, which came to NBFC during the financial crisis, which happened in terms of the uncertainties on the moratorium period. But there was a swap in August which said that, okay, if you fund growth stage company, it's a priority sector lending for the banks and it would be at reduced pricing. Similar swaps which can build a framework around supporting the new economy, which will come through digital economy, what we are saying, is quite encouraging. I like to believe there's been a lot of strategizing overall in that direction. And I think the banks are trying to come out with new structures possible within the framework of RBI right now, but there are opportunities to build and do more creative, maximum permissible banking finance structures which are allowed by the RBI to build upon that.
Yeah, I think fiscally liberal for sure. I think it's not time for the government or RBI to go conservative and harden interest rates or money policies. I think it's time to be lax with that. This year is not an easy year by any means. I know we seem like we have come off easy with just a 7% GDP contraction. We all know how bad 2019 was. So before even getting into 2020, we had which was affected because of COVID, we had come out of a challenging 2019. So I think India needs some oxygen right now. I think we need a liberal money policy coming into 2021. And the budget is going to be hugely looked upon for that. I think one thing, and I was saying this right in the beginning of today's session, I think one thing India has proven to itself, it's good on production, it's good on demand, it's good on consumption. If the country is awash right now with capital, liberal capital will go a long way in smoothing out consumption. We need to keep the country needs to keep consuming. And let's not forget one thing: the toughest of recessions and the toughest of times have come out on the back of retail and consumer consumption. So India hasn't truly seen anything like what the Western part of the world has gone through. We are kind of getting a flavor of it now. So we should use some pages from their book and keep the economy thriving with capital infusion.
All right. Well, Rohit, let me quickly also rope in Tej Kapoor is back with us. But Tej, I'm just coming to you. The question we're, of course, asking our panel is on what you still expect from government and RBI later this year. Certain sectors, certain announcements left. From last year, even though the government did announce several measures in their multiple stimulus package and, of course, reform steps that they took as well. And, of course, the RBI had made certain key announcements too. Tarun Chaurasia, that question to you first, and then I'll rope in Tej Kapoor, who's just joined us back again.
Yeah, I guess I would like to highlight more specifically with respect to the real estate sector and the expectation which one need to have from the government and also from the budget. Currently we have about $124 billion of unsold inventory in the country, right? And it has multiple implications across the stakeholders. And it's very important that that inventory needs to be liquidated as early as possible. And everybody wanted to have in house. And I guess my expectation from the budget and from the government is to really do something, maybe to enable more disposable income in the hands of the individual so that they can buy a home, or maybe reduce the home loan interest rate so that they can also buy a home, or maybe to increase the exemption limit under Section 80C of the income tax set. And there are many more ways which can help to boost up the demand in the housing sector. And it has a great impact on the Indian economy because this particular sector has been lagging behind for the last couple of years, and there is an urgent need to revive this particular sector, which is going to have a direct impact on the Indian economy.
Okay, Tej Kapoor.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about drop. I think something happened, but yeah. So I think the government has with the stimulus package, not only the Indian government but also the US government. There is a lot of I would say the hot money that has been floating around. And most of it is actually, unfortunately, pumped into the stock market. I think the reforms that we are really looking forward for, in my opinion, going back to Rohit's point on consumption, is that when we expect RBI to kind of keep a same look, a liberal look on the rate, interest rate, we still need the money actually to go circulate down to the bottom, not so much on the top. So we still need to see the rural sector reforms, and also the tier 3 cities reforms and tier 2 cities, which is really hitting the pockets of people who make 20,000-30,000 rupees. I think that will kickstart a lot of economic activity again, because there's a big mismatch between the street and the markets, right? So
Right.
we really need to fill that gap. And the second thing I think is also we want real estate reforms. I cannot express, the real estate right now is really, really slow, and there's a lot of unsold inventory, like my friend pointed out. I think we need to, go away with some of the stamp duties that we have, which will really help and enable us to, really kick forward the real estate sector in India.
Okay.
And the third is we should not ignore, which we represent, all of us here, is the startup sector. I think government needs to take a much liberal look on the angel tax issue, which has been reformed to a bit, but we need further clarifications to that. And also, anything they can do to boost the morale of startups, because SMEs and startups are the ones which really drive India. So I think there has to be a lot of focus on that in this budget.
All right. Well, appreciate all of you joining us on today's edition of the NewsX Business World Panels on the Indian economy. Wish you and your businesses and funds, of course, all the very best for the year 2021. Thanks for being with us. Goodbye to our viewers as well.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.